Hey everyone, buckle up, because today we're diving into something pretty epic. The American Valor Run. It's a motorcycle tour across Europe, but it's not your average ride. Think scenic routes and historical sites.
Yeah. It combines a love of motorcycles with a deep dive into World War II history. Pretty incredible combination, right?
Absolutely. We're going through the AVR preparation guide and a bunch of other notes, so we're talking packing tips, historical background, and the company behind it all, Elite Bike Tours.
Sounds like a lot to unpack.
It is, but super interesting stuff. So let's jump in. First things first, prepping for a journey like this. It can't just be hop on your bike and go right.
Definitely not. The preparation guide really stresses the pre-trip prep, especially your motorcycle. Interestingly, you don't actually ride it to the starting point. It gets shipped to Rotterdam.
Shipped. Wow, okay. So I guess that makes pre-shipping prep even more crucial.
For sure. Your bike's going to be your main mode of transport for over 3,000 miles, so it needs to be in top shape. The guide is very specific about this.
Okay, spill it. What do they recommend?
Well, firstly, they want your bike spotless.
Yeah.
Like sparkling clean undercarriage too. Apparently customs officials are sticklers for that. And here's a little detail that I found interesting. You need less than a quarter tank of fuel when you ship. It's a Coast Guard regulation.
Less than a quarter tank. Wow, I would definitely forget to do that.
Right. It's in the guide though, so don't forget. And there's a reason for all this attention to detail. They really emphasize documenting your bike's condition before shipping. Take videos, photos, the whole 9 yards.
Why so meticulous?
Imagine this. You arrive in Rotterdam all excited to start your adventure, and your bike's got a new dent or scratch. That documentation, that's your proof. It's your protection.
Makes sense. So beyond the cleaning and documenting, what about the mechanical stuff?
That's where a trusted mechanic comes in. Obviously an oil change. New tires are a must for a trip like this. You're covering serious mileage. But it goes beyond the basics. You want a mechanic who understands the specific demands of this tour. Think European roads, weather conditions, it all factors in.
Wow, I hadn't thought of that. That's a great point. Okay, so the bike's prepped. What about us? How do we pack for a 3,000-mile motorcycle adventure?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Motorcycle luggage space is limited, so efficient packing is key. The guide recommends covering 2 main areas, riding gear, and then more casual stuff for dinners and events.
Makes sense. I bet comfortable boots are a lifesaver after a long day of riding.
Oh, for sure. But then you'll want something a little nicer for dinners. They actually have 3 organized dinners during the tour. And get this? They even provide you with a polo shirt for group events.
No way. That's awesome.
Right. It's a nice touch. And of course, you'll need your pajamas, undergarments, the essentials, you know.
So jeans and a polo for dinners,
Yeah.
comfy clothes for riding, and they've even got our group event attire covered.
Exactly. But here's where it gets tricky. It's all about packing light and making the most of that limited space. The guide really recommends motorcycle-specific luggage. Something from brands like BMW, Harley-Davidson, or Honda.
Yeah, those are probably designed to fit snugly on a bike, right?
Exactly. They're shaped to hold a lot and stay secure.
So it's like a game of Tetris trying to fit everything in. But seriously,
Yeah.
any tips for someone like me who tends to overpack?
The guide is very clear about this pack, only what fits on your bike. They do offer additional luggage shipping, but they really encourage participants to embrace the minimalist approach. It's all about focusing on the experience, not the stuff.
I love that. Let go of the excess baggage, literally and figuratively.
Exactly. Simplify, focus on what truly matters.
So we've talked about the physical prep, the bike, the packing, but what about the emotional weight of this trip? We're going to be visiting sites that hold a lot of history, a lot of sorrow. How does the AVR prepare riders for that?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's something they take very seriously. They have a 2-pronged approach, professional riding guides, and then private guides at the historical sites themselves.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about these guides.
So the professional riding guides, they ensure a smooth and safe journey. They handle navigation traffic laws, all those logistical details so you can relax and focus on the experience. But then, at the museums, the memorials, those incredibly significant locations, you have private guides who are actual World War II experts.
Wow, I can just picture those private guides at Normandy bringing those stories to life. That must be incredible.
It really is. They make history tangible, personal. The guide even recommends some pre-trip research, familiarizing yourself with the history of each location, maybe even reading some personal accounts from the war.
So being informed, engaged,
Right.
but also emotionally prepared for the impact these sites might have.
Exactly. They even suggest reaching out to a mental health professional beforehand if you think you might need some support in processing those emotions. It's all about being able to fully engage with the history without being overwhelmed by it.
That's really thoughtful. They're clearly committed to making this a safe and supportive experience on every level.
Absolutely. And speaking of being prepared, we can't forget the essential paperwork.
Oh, right. The less glamorous but equally important side of things. What do we need to know?
Well, you'll need your passport, of course, and any necessary visas, depending on your nationality. You'll also need your U.S. driver's license. And here's the good news. Elite Bike Tours provides you with an international driver's license when you arrive in Rotterdam.
They just give you one. That's amazing.
It is. They really try to make the whole process as smooth as possible.
Hmm.
You'll also need your motorcycle insurance cards, and they'll help you arrange European riding insurance, which is a must-have.
So they pretty much got all the bases covered. Just show up with your passport and a good attitude.
Pretty much. It all ties back to that AVR ethos. They handle the details so you can focus on the experience. Less stress, more immersion.
I'm loving that philosophy more and more. They really seem to understand that preparing for a trip like this goes way beyond just getting your bike ready. It's about preparing yourself mentally and emotionally as well.
Exactly. It's a journey that has the potential to change you.
So you've got your bike prepped, your bags packed, your passport ready. Are you ready for this kind of transformation?
That's a great question for our listeners to ponder. But before you get lost in thought, we've got a lot more ground to cover. Stay tuned because in part 2 of our deep dive, we'll be exploring the heart of this extraordinary adventure. Welcome back. We're digging deeper into the American Valor Run.
We left off talking about the AVR's focus on emotional prep, which isn't something you usually see with motorcycle tours, right?
No, not really. And I think that shows how deep this experience really is. They're not ignoring the emotional weight of these historical sites. They want you to connect with it in a thoughtful way.
I get wanting to minimize stress, but is there any room for spontaneity? It seems so meticulously planned.
That's a good question. You know, the sources don't really get into the daily schedule. They focus more on the prep and the overall idea behind the AVR.
Fair enough. So they handle the big stuff. But what about the little things, like checking into hotels? Do we have to deal with luggage in foreign hotel lobbies after a long day of riding?
They don't mention that specifically. But thinking about the AVR philosophy of handling things, it's likely they have a system for that too, to make it smooth.
Right, it makes sense. They seem to have thought of everything. So let's say someone's seriously considering this trip, bikes ready, luggage packed, passport in hand. What advice would we give them based on what we've learned?
I think the biggest thing is to be ready for both sides of this trip. The physical challenge of riding long distances and the emotional depth of the historical sites. Don't underestimate either one.
And don't be afraid to use the support that Elite Bike Tours provides. They've really gone all out to make it challenging but also enriching.
Exactly. And I'd add this. Be open to how this experience could change you. Don't just go through the motions. Connect with the history, with your fellow riders. Let yourself be moved by it all.
I love that. It's not just a ride. It's almost like a pilgrimage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like any pilgrimage, it takes preparation, both practical and, maybe even spiritual. Speaking of prep, are there any big red flags to watch out for? Things not to do?
That's a good point. The guide doesn't have a list of don'ts, but they do talk about avoiding too much baggage.
Right.
Both literally and figuratively.
Right. Don't overpack. Don't try to cram everything into your saddlebags. And don't go in with any biases about the history.
Well, that's a good one. Be open to learning, to seeing things from a different perspective.
Yeah.
This isn't a trip for closed minds.
Exactly. And don't underestimate how important physical fitness and hydration are. It's demanding. You need stamina to really enjoy it.
Yeah, I can imagine. Long days on the road, plus those immersive historical tours. It's a recipe for exhaustion if you're not ready.
And that's why they stress gradually increasing your water intake before the tour. Remember, we talked about at least a gallon a day.
A gallon? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's commitment.
It is, but it makes sense when you think about how physically demanding it is. They want you to be up for the challenge.
So it's not just about the destination. It's about being present for the whole thing, every step of the way.
And every twist and turn of the road.
Okay, so we've got the physical prep, emotional prep, packing paperwork. What about the riding itself? Do we need to brush up on European road rules?
Well, remember, AVR provides those professional riding guides. They know European roads and regulations like the back of their hand. They handle navigation and make sure everyone follows the rules so you can relax and enjoy the ride.
That's a relief. I'm not sure I'd be comfortable with roundabouts and unfamiliar signs in a foreign country.
I hear you. But get this. The guide emphasizes that these riders are also skilled at keeping a good pace for the group.
So no worries about keeping up with a pack of speed demons.
Not at all. They understand it's about the experience, not about breaking speed records. Everyone should feel comfortable and confident.
That's so reassuring. It really sounds like they've thought of every single detail to make this trip truly unforgettable.
That's the beauty of the AVR. They take care of the logistics, the planning, all the potential stress, so you can just be in the moment, immerse yourself in the history, the camaraderie, the joy of riding.
I'm sold. Where do I sign up? Until next time, keep those engines running and those minds